And you're very welcome back to the Agriland tent here at the National Ploughing Championships. We're basked in glorious sunshine here in Ratheniska in County Laois. An absolutely glorious day. And the crowds are milling around here in the centre of the site. And we have more coming up now on our live stream because we're going to turn our attention to the topic of why food producers matter and what exactly their role is in the food chain and how perhaps we may strengthen that role. I'm delighted to be joined here on the panel by the CEO of the recently formed Agri-Food Regulator, that's Niamh Lenehan. Beside her is John Murray. John is a Board BIA Director of Sectors, and Roy Gallie is to his left, who is of course Chair of the IFA National Pigs Committee. You're all very welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us, coming in out of the sunshine. Niamh, I'm going to start with yourself. The Agri-Food Regulator, it is something I suppose that has sparked the interest of so many farmers out there. We've craved within the sector for so long for transparency, for fairness. Can you tell us initially, what is the remit of the regulator? What is the parameters within which you're working at the moment?
So thank you. And look, really appreciative to Agriland to be here. I'm delighted to be here and on the panel. So what was the Agri-Food Regulator set up to do? Well, it has many functions, but there's two particular functions that are central to its work. So one is the Enforcement Authority for the unfair trading practices. So we have a list of unfair trading practices that are prohibited in all circumstances. There's 10 of those, a further 6 that are prohibited unless expressly agreed between a buyer and a seller, a buyer and a supplier, and we are responsible for enforcing compliance with those rules. So they include payment periods, a ban against unilateral change of contract, etc., between businesses along the supply chain. I suppose there has been more interest since establishment about our price and market analysis. So what we've been asked to do under the legislation is to publish analysis of information about price and market data. So our remit is to work with businesses all along the supply chain and basically to improve transparency, and in turn we're looking at price formation mechanisms in that. Okay, so we did hear word that you have been obviously working very, very hard. You've been engaging, as you said, all along the supply chain. But unfortunately, when it comes to maybe the first report that you were hoping to look at in the egg sector, maybe not as much cooperation as you were hoping for, unfortunately, there. Yeah, we reached out earlier this year in terms of our first sector to look at, if you like, the egg sector. We have a board, delighted to have Joe Healy as our chairperson as well. And the board had decided on a certain approach in terms of we're looking at information that's publicly available in the first instance on different sectors and looking to supplement that as appropriate with private information, so information that we could provide or be submitted from businesses. Which is probably what the industry is craving, Niamh. Absolutely. So what we're trying to do is work with businesses in the supply chain to fill those gaps, essentially. So we reached out to the main players in the egg supply, and there was, I have to say, there was very good engagement. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, a number of retailers, although they engaged, they didn't provide the information required. And last week, the board had recommended and wrote to the Minister to recommend that additional powers be supplied or provided to the regulator to enable us carry out that role. Did you find that surprising? Did you find it disappointing, frustrating that the retailers weren't prepared to engage with the level of power that you currently have under legislation, Niamh? Yeah, well, look, of course I'm disappointed. I mean, we set out with our best foot forward. We had a lot of engagement, and as I say, it's important to say there was very positive engagement on the ground, and many businesses put their best foot forward in terms of providing us with this sensitive information. And look, we're working with that relationship, obviously, and it'll evolve. Of course, I'm so disappointed that some retailers did not provide us the data. Did they explain why, Niamh? Well, there's a variety of reasons. That's up for them, to be honest. But I think the factor that we're looking at is, apart from building, of course, very strong relationships, the power that we have is to seek information, so we can't compel anybody to provide it to us. And look, a lot of the issues that we're coming up against is in terms of how we would mine sensitive data, etc. So obviously we put our best foot forward in that a lot of businesses did provide information to us. So we're very satisfied that a satisfactory approach was taken in terms of dealing with businesses. But at the end of the day, the board did recommend that we provide or that there's additional powers for us to compel businesses.
Okay, Roy Gallie, I'm going to bring you in here, the IFA Pig Committee Chair. Transparency in our food chain and, I suppose, redistributing the power within the food chain is something that farmers have called for a very, very long time. Do you have faith that the Agri-Food Regulator and the team there will be able to achieve that?
This is something that, yes, I'm passionate about, in that we need to have fairness right the way down the food chain, so that when we go to produce our food, that there's adequate recompense coming back to the farmer from the trade, if you like. And I think one of the things we're tackling at the moment is generational renewal. And that is an indicator of how resilient, if you like, the industry is and how attractive it is for young people to come into agriculture. And that revolves entirely around the profitability that's necessary within our sector to be able to produce food. Because don't forget, everybody here requires a farmer 3 times a day, if not more times a day. And as we get less and less of us, so there's now 230 pig farmers supplying this country with its entire amount of pig feed. So I'm responsible for feeding 100,000 people, if you like, as the average pig farmer. So when we get down to this and the numbers get smaller and smaller, yet our population gets larger and larger, there is ever more importance upon the whole chain to work properly, so that Niamh's job is to make sure that this is fairness. So when something is, and one of the things that we've been sort of concentrating on, and I know Niamh can't tackle it, which is below cost selling. And I went into a butcher shop in a town where we were demonstrating some number of years ago when the pig farmers were in trouble. And he said to me, he says, I've got to have imported product on my shelf because if I have Irish stuff on, I want to have Irish stuff on it. The retailers simply have a below cost selling approach to that individual item, be it chicken or be it pork, whatever it is. And everybody goes off there and buys their product in there, leaving me with all my stuff on my shelf.
So he's losing
and that's
business.
Non-sustainable. That's as a thing. So that's one of the areas that we need to. And I see Ursula von der Leyen has brought this into her new program for government. So I'm hoping that Niamh can have a little bit more say on the sort of practice of below-cost selling.
Fingers crossed. John, I'm going to bring you in here. From a Board BIA point of view, obviously you market Irish produce right around the world and developing into new markets and everything like that. But I suppose the role of the food producer within that supply chain, that's obviously key. You need the farmers on the ground to be producing the excellent food that you can market right around the world.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, we still export 90% of our beef, over 95% of our dairy, a high proportion of our lamb, and a number of other products. And the cornerstone to that promotion is the story of Irish agricultural production, which is totally embedded in the family farm model that we have, and it underpins all of that narrative. It gives that connotation of quality, but we back that up with the verification systems that we put in place, and certainly that has been instrumental in terms of opening the doors and maintaining those doors with quality customers around the world.
And I know obviously labelling is a huge issue as well in terms of traceability, and to make sure that we have, the products that consumers are buying, that they can be assured that it is Irish. You feel that that's robust enough at the moment that consumers, we do see cases from time to time where things happen along the way.
Yeah, look, I mean, I absolutely agree. I mean, it is a big industry, and we need to be constantly vigilant and constantly monitoring this. But assurance for the consumer is fundamentally the thing we need to remember. And that is, from my mind, that's always where the retailer is or the food service customer is. They're thinking about that brand trust. And that trust is embedded in not making mistakes for your consumer, because consumers are very unforgiving if you make a mistake there. So traceability has to be at a really, really high level. And if you don't comply, or if you don't make that, it does impact loyalty from a consumer point of view.
Well, we hear all the time that proof points that consumers don't accept just the top line facts anymore. They want they're very I suppose aware, they're educated, and they won't accept that.
Absolutely, and we see that with our quality assurance mark and the domestic market, that has a really, really high resonance with consumers. Actually, it's one of the highest brand awareness mechanisms in the market versus all of the other pieces that are out there. And consumers put a huge amount of trust in that and look for it. And that is why we see then retailers or others coming in looking to try and stock that in themselves, because it gives an instant recognition for them.
Niamh, I'm going to come back to you. The Agri-Food Regulator in July announced that you had instigated legal proceedings against a business. Can you tell us any more about that case at the moment, and are we likely to see more following?
Well, it's ongoing, so I'm not going to comment on that case. But what I would say is that we are very active on the ground. So I talked about these unfair trading practices. So, for example, there's specific payment periods for perishable agri-food products, for example. And I think I just want to get the message out there. Well, two messages really. We're very active on the ground in terms of inspections on the ground, but obviously we can't inspect all agri-food businesses. So it's a partnership approach with suppliers on the ground where we really want to know if there's issues on the ground. So I've been very vocal about the door being open, where if you're experiencing an issue that you think could be a breach of an unfair trading practice, please come and talk to us. We're not expecting you to be experts on unfair trading practices. You can come and talk to us in confidence, so you can remain anonymous, and just give us the information, and we can talk that through with you.
Yeah. You had the egg sector report very briefly. Where are you going next?
We're working on horticulture and a couple of other sectors in the background, yeah.
Excellent, that's fantastic. We're going to leave it there. Niamh Lenehan, the CEO of the Agri-Food Regulator, John Murray, Board BIA Director of Sectors, and Roy Gallie, the IFA Pig Committee Chair. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to head back out into the field now in Ratheniska and enjoy some more sunshine.